Have you ever been in a stream where when the first time you say something in the chat, something pops up on the overlay to greet you? And this also happens for anyone else that comes in to the chat and says something for the first time that day. Well, it turns out that that's not very hard to make at all. So if you've been following along with everything that we've been doing in this Make a Twitch Bot from Scratch series, all you'd have to do is go into your overlay file and add in a div with the ID of hello section. And if you've not been following along up to this point, I will leave a link in the description to the playlist for all of the functionality that you're seeing up to this point. So just make a div with the ID of hello section in your HTML file, and then come back to your bot. And you're going to need a global variable. We're going to declare it as a constant and call it greeted chatters. And this is just going to be an empty array. And once we have our global variable, we're going to go down to our chat message handler right here. And really all we're using here is the tmi.js package that we used to initially set up the bot. So we're not using anything to do with the event subsystem or the Twitch API. We're just using the stuff that deals with chat itself. And so we're going to come here, we're going to go right at the top of the function, and we're going to add in a new conditional. So we're going to say if. And what we want to check is if the person that has chatted is not within the greeted chatters array. So if someone says something for the first time in the stream, at least for that day, they're not going to be within that array. So we need to check and say, if not, so this is the not operator, greeted chatters dot includes, and then we're going to check if the greeted chatters array does not include the user state and then square brackets because we need this to be a specific string, and then display dash name. And you can find the different things you can get within the user array by just, the user state by just console logging out the user state and seeing all of the different attributes that you can work with. So in this case, though, we're just working with the display name. So if the greeted chatters array does not include the chatter's name that just sent a message, then we're going to send out a socket event emission. So that's also within the Build a Twitch Bot from Scratch series, which I will also leave a link to that specific video in the description. So we're going to say sockets emit, and we're going to emit the event as a string of hello Q, like this. And then we're going to have a JSON object that contains two attributes. And those attributes are going to be a name, in which case is just going to be, again, the user state, and then square brackets, and then display name, so display dash name. And for my specific purposes, I also want to grab the color of the person's name. So like whenever you see someone's name in the Twitch chat and they have a specific color assigned to their name, you can grab that name from the user state. So in my case, I want to use this color. So we're going to say the color attribute is going to be equal to the user state dot color. And that's all you need for that. So after we emit the socket event, we want to then push the person that just chatted onto the greeted chatters array so that they don't get another event again. So we're just going to say greeted chatters dot push, and then the user state, and then square brackets, and then the string of display dash name. And that's everything that we need within the bot file. So as per usual, within the past few videos, we're next going to jump into the CSS file because this gives us some nice autocomplete to work with whenever we get to the HTML within the client side of the JavaScript. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a animation and a new class. So let me give myself some buffers so you can see everything. And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a new animation. So we're just going to say keyframes, and then I want this to be hello Q animation. And this is just going to be a simple slide in from the right, stay on screen for a few seconds, and then slide back out. So we're going to say at 0%, we want the right position to be at negative 50%. So we want this to be far off to the right side of the screen to where you don't see it at first. And then by 10%, we want this to be sliding all the way into view on the screen. So we want the right position to be 0. So it's going to be sitting against the right edge of the screen. We want that to stay there for a few seconds. So we're going to say that we want this to stay until the 90% mark of the animation. So at 90%, we want to just repeat what we just said. So the right position is going to be at 0. And then at 100%, we want the right position to be back at negative 50%. And that's everything that we need for the animation. So now what we're going to do is we are going to create a new CSS class. So we're going to call this one .helloQ container. And within this, we want the position to be absolute because we want to be able to precisely place everything on the screen. And then we want the top position to be fixed at the top of the screen. So we want this to be at the top edge. So we're going to say top 0. And then we want this to start all the way off screen on the right. So just like at the beginning of our animation, we're going to set the right to negative 50%. So it's way off to the right side of the screen to where you do not see it. Now for the background, I need this to be a very specific color because whenever we're using the colors of names specifically from chat, you're going to run the risk of if you have a color that's too bright or too dark, it's going to blend in too much with the background. So it essentially makes that name not visible if the name is too dark, in my case. So what I did is I decided to take the exact color of the chat background from the Twitch dark mode theme, which is this hex value right here. So hashtag 18181B. So that is the exact color for the dark mode background of Twitch chat, which gives you the most viewable range as far as the color schemes of the names. And then I also wanted to set a border of 2 pixels, solid silver for obvious reasons. And then we also want some padding within this class so that the text itself is not sitting directly on the edge. So we just want to give a padding of 8 pixels. We want the font size to be something nice and visible. So we're going to say 36 pixels. And then for my own purposes, you can change the color to whatever you want. So for any of the text that's beyond the chatter's name, I want the color of the text to be white smoke. I don't want it to be pure white, but I do want it to be white. And then we want to set the animation name to the HelloQ animation that we just defined a minute ago. We want the animation duration to be 5 seconds. And then we want the animation fill mode to be forwards so that whenever you're done with a particular animation, it just stays off of the screen instead of having this like weird hitching, looping action that could possibly go on. And that's everything that we need for the CSS. So now we can jump into our overlay file. And within our overlay file, we need to scroll all the way up to the top because we need some global variables and a new function. So we're essentially going to be creating another alert queue. So if you've seen how we do follow alerts, sub alerts, and stuff like that, and also the channel point alerts, this is going to look very familiar. Otherwise, this is probably going to look somewhat new to you. So we're going to go right below our run channel point queue function. And you don't absolutely need these functions for any of this to work. This is just because we've been doing this as a series. But anyway, you're going to need 2 variables. You're going to want to have a constant called HelloQ, and you want this to be an empty array. And then you want a variable that can change, so you want to say let HelloQ running, which this is going to determine if we're going to actually run the HelloQ or not. And you want this to start off as false. And right below these two variables, what we want to do is we want to declare a new function. We want to call this run hello queue. And we want this to be an arrow function with no parameters that you need to run initially. And within this function, we need a few variables to start off with. So we need something that can change. So we need a let, and we want to have this be called the current alert. So this is going to be the current person that is being greeted. We want this to be set to the hello queue dot shift, which is going to pull the very first element within the array and then remove it while still assigning that value to the current alert variable. And then we also want to grab the HTML element that we created before. So we want to say const hello section equals document dot get element by ID. And we want to pass in the string of hello section. And then we want to assign the hello section's inner HTML to the current alert. And right after this, what we want to do is we want to set a timeout. So we want to say set timeout, and we've done this plenty of times. So we want to have this, the first argument as a function, and then the second argument being how long we want to wait before that function is run. So in our case, we want to wait 10 seconds. So this will be 10,000 milliseconds. I'm sorry, we need this one to be 6,000 milliseconds. So we want to wait 6 seconds to start. And then after 6 seconds, what we want to do is we want to clear the inner HTML of the hello section. So we want to say hello section.inner HTML equals an empty string. And the reason that we're doing this is so that we can be ready for the next alert if it comes in immediately after the first one. So like say if you have a raid that comes in and a bunch of people are saying hi or just anything for the first time within the stream that day, you're going to have a bunch of people that are going to get shouted out right away. So you need this to run one at a time, and you ideally don't want to have them all flood the screen because they'll all just replace each other. So you want them to happen one at a time. And then after this, what we need to do is we need to next set an interval, which is going to run every few seconds until we run out of names that need to be greeted. So what we're going to do is we're going to say let queue interval equal set interval, which works the same way as set timeout. So this is going to take in two parameters, and the first one, of course, being a function, and the second one being how long we want to wait before we run this interval again. So this is the one where we need to have 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds. And within this function, we have a simple conditional. So the first thing we want to do is we want to say if the hello queue length is equal to 0, meaning that we have run out of names of people that we need to greet, or if the alerts within our overlay has been paused. And if you're wondering how we go about pausing the overlay alerts, that's a video within the Create a Twitch Bot from Scratch series, which I'll also leave that one in the description. So if the alerts are paused, or we've run out of names to greet, what we want to do is we want to flip the hello queue running variable back to false. So this is not running anymore. And then we also want to clear the interval that we are running right now. So we want to say clear interval, queue interval, which just stops all of the events from running. So all of the alerts from being shown. Now, if neither one of these are the case, we want to say else run the next alert that needs to be run. So just like above, we want to say current alert is going to be equal to the hello queue dot shift, like this. And then we want to say the hello section dot inner HTML is equal to the current alert. And then just like before, we want to set a timeout to clear the alert once it's set. So what we can do is we can just copy this set timeout right here and then paste it right here. So after 6 seconds, we want the alert to be cleared off from the screen to be awaiting the next one. And that's it for this function. So we have everything that we need to run the hello queue. So now we need to get events in there. So first things first though, we need to go within the pause alerts listener that we created in the alerts pausing video, and we need to add an extra if statement. So we need to say if the hello queue length is greater than 0, that means that we have events or people that need to be greeted that have yet to be greeted because the alerts are paused. So if we have people that are still waiting to be greeted, but the alerts are paused, then we want to say that the hello queue running variable needs to be set to true, and we need to run the hello queue like this. And that's it for that. So next, what we want to do is we want to create another listener so that we can actually receive people's names that need to be greeted and then put them on the overlay. So we're going to say socket.on, and we are specifically looking for an event listener named hello queue. And then our second argument is going to be a function with the parameter of chatter. So this is the information from the person that has just been saying something in chat for the first time. That's also the person that, if you remember from before, we said that we wanted their name. We wanted the name of their color within the chat. So what we're going to do is we are going to take the hello queue and we're going to push some HTML onto it, just like we've been doing with all of the other alert style things that we've been doing up to this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to push a single quote string onto this. And within this is going to contain some HTML. So we're going to say we want a div, and this div is going to have the class of hello queue container. And within this div, we want a span. We're going to start this off by saying, well met. And you can have this be whatever you want. This is how I'm choosing to greet people within the chat whenever they come in for the first time and say something. So after we say well met, we want to close off the single strings like this. We want to say plus another span. So we want to say single quotes again, and then right here, plus. So we have to be kind of careful with how we're doing our quotes to make this, doable. So right here, we want a span like this, and this span is going to have a style attribute, and this is where we have to be very careful with our quotes. So what we want is we want a color attribute, and this is where things get hairy. So you notice that we have single quotes and we have double quotes. This is very specific because we need the double quotes to be containing the style attribute information, and we need the single quotes to be containing the rest of the HTML information. So we need this to be dynamic. So what we want to do is we want to have a single quote right here, and then plus, and then single quote to close that off so that we can keep everything strung together in the way that we need it to be. So also I will bring this stuff down for you for readability, and I will drag this down. And then we want to come right here. We want to say plus chatter dot color. And this will assign the color that the person is using within Twitch chat to the name that they have showing on the screen. And then we want to have single quote, actually 2 single quotes right here. And we want to say plus right here, and then come back, and then plus again. And then we want to say chatter.name. So this span is going to have the color of the person's name within the chat, and that the content of this span is going to be the person's name themselves. And then that is actually all the HTML that we're going to need. Also, for my own purposes, I added in an exclamation point right here so that the exclamation point is the same color as well met, but that's just, details on my part. And then I bring this down for extra readability. So that's all the HTML that we need for this. Now, what we need to do is we need to say that if the hello queue running variable is currently set to false, meaning that there are no names currently being run and that the queue is not running, what we need to do is we need to say that we want to flip the hello queue running variable to true, and then we want to run the hello queue function. That is actually everything that we need to do in order to create a hello queue that will show something on the screen. So if I go into my Twitch chat and then I say something for the first time, it's going to pop up like this, well met, Sir Silverstar on the top right, with the name color that I use within Twitch chat. And that is how you create a hello queue. And I'm sure you can get, if you wanted to get more creative, you can get much more creative with how you handle your HTML and styling and everything that you do within the box at the top right that we just created. But I'll leave that up to you to get creative for that yourself. So, thank you all for watching. If this helped you at all or it gave you ideas for extra things that you want to do for yourself, please feel free to like and subscribe. If there are functions or features that you would like to see me create for a Twitch bot, please leave that in the comments down below as well. So thank you all for watching, and feel free to check out the full playlist of the Make a Twitch Bot from Scratch series, which you'll find right above my head, and I will catch you next time. Jesus loves you.